an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering The Maid and the Crocodile, a novel in the world of Raybearer. Chapters 15 through 19. In this episode, all of this is so terrible. All of it is so bad. Small Sade gets a little preview of the thing that she is expected to do 20 times in a row. And even though she starts to run, she is convinced not to by a spirit that I think she should ignore, but I also get why she doesn't. Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
All right. This is so sad, guys. This is tough. I don't like it at all. Everything, like, there's just, there's like a couple little moments of reprieve, but we are in a particularly bleak moment right now, I feel like. And I'm looking and we're only 40% into the book on chapter 15. Mm-hmm. So I am concerned that there's more bleakness coming soon. But how did you feel about this?
This was rough going, y'all. This was rough going. We got an answer to a question that we've been having about the Anointed Ones and why Small Sade is so terrified of them. Mm-hmm. And I have to admit, I was a little surprised that was all she did.
Yeah.
But I could see why it was so traumatizing because the consequences of her action was so severe.
Yeah.
But I was really like, oh, she just got scared. Mm-hmm. That's not she didn't like mock the gods or, reject, she was a little girl and she just got a little frightened by this, like, this Sanjeet monster that the locals had created as a sort of a boogeyman for children. Like,
I really hate the fact that that's something that happened. Like, I had forgotten about it, and it was interesting to see Sanjeet from her perspective because we were here for this moment when this, and she was unnamed at the time. Mm-hmm. And it was very heartbreaking, but almost felt like, how could that happen?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it almost was like a little, that was sad, but almost like too much. And then being in her POV and realizing that she had known his name for so long that he failed to be a human being anymore to her is like really, really a bummer, man.
Yeah. It's so weird to have the, like, it was really clever that Jordan has taken us back to this moment that I had forgotten about. Like, I hadn't thought about that moment since we read the book, that wasn't one of the big things that stuck out in my head about the story. And then to circle back in such a way, I was just like, oh, okay, Miss Jordan. Okay.
Exactly. So, all right, this is the story. She is being raised by her mother, who is involved with this guy that her mother calls trifling so often. Without knowing his real name, that is what Sade goes on to call this man in earnest, which is so hilarious. Funny. Calling somebody trifling is already very funny to me. Like, I've always found that particular wording to be so kind of like it's a combination of feeling really modern and old fashioned somehow.
It is a devastating insult. It is a devastating insult. Because it like when I was a little kid and I heard the word, I knew like what it meant. I knew what was meant when it was said, but I didn't know what the definition of the word actually meant. Right? Like if somebody called somebody was being trifling, I knew that it was negative. I knew it was a way of saying that somebody wasn't shit. Like, you know, they just ain't shit. They're trifling. Mm-hmm. But then when you get older and you find out that the word actually has part of the meaning is like something being so small and petty and like sort of inconsequential, and then you're just like, oh, that's like a 2-punch shot, right?
I remember finding out about the dessert called trifle and being very confused, though.
Oh my god, I had the same thing with tripe when I found out that tripe was like something that people eat. Because
wait, what's the other word for it?
Well, like I was used to it as meaning like. Shit.
Oh, that's bullshit?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Like malarkey. It's tripe.
We don't say malarkey around these parts, ma'am.
Well, maybe we should.
That was the previous administration. So anyway, she is sort of like aware of the fact that once her mother got pregnant, this guy started to go even harder. And the thought here, of course, being that now that I got her pregnant, she can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Which is a very real thing, folks out there. I've been seeing it in person for a person that I know, and it is a very upsetting thing to watch happen. Mm-hmm.
It's a very common thing. And I love this thing where it says when he found out that mom was pregnant, his kindness winked out like a lamp in a gust of wind. His kisses soured into snarls, his embraces into slaps and punches, and he grew worse every hour. Like that change that happens, you know, once they feel like they got you and you're trapped, and then they can be their real selves. Because what are you going to do about it? Where are you going to fucking go?
And this is why when people say, well, you should choose better, I say, maybe you should go jump off a high area in the world till you die, because you don't understand how much a person can fake being decent.
Yep.
Until you have dealt with men like this.
Yep. It
is remarkable.
Like, you think you really know someone. They are showing you who they want you to see, and it can be impossible to understand that until they show you finally the other part. And usually the other part comes when it's almost too late. You know, that whole choose better. And then they say that shit too, like, not to get off on a whole thing, but I don't know if you heard the story about the Ugandan Olympic runner whose name is Rebecca something. I can't remember her last name.
No.
She just ran in Paris and won. She goes back home. Her ex-boyfriend sets her on fire.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. And she died the next day. So y'all be like, oh, choose better. She chose poorly, got out of it, and it still didn't save her.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So like that whole choose better bullshit. Like, no. If like you said, off of a very high place,
high area,
a very high area.
Yes. God.
Yeah. So this Mama Sade runs. You know, decides that she's not gonna stay with this, and she says that she had heard Sade in her belly whisper, "Go, Fola, go," and she makes a break for it, and she runs into the bush for safety, and she knows enough about enough to find ways to protect herself from the enchantments of the bush with these flowers and these blossoms that she has to use. And eventually leads to a cave, and that's where Sade is born. And
anybody else really feeling like we need to go to that cave for reasons?
Listen,
I don't know what's happening in my head, what I even think is gonna, but like, I don't know. I feel like we got to go back to the original, the source, because something significant's got to be there waiting, right?
It feels like it, right? Like eventually we're going to have to go back to this place because there's definitely some magic happening. And so then she comes out of the bush, and turns out she's hundreds of miles from where she went in. She comes out in a whole different part of the realm.
Yeah.
And she pops out right outside of Yura Keep, which is where all the anointed.
Yoruba.
It's just Yorua. There's no B.
Oh, really?
Unless it's a typo on the page I'm reading. It's just, yeah. And this is where the council and the Ray Bearers are and living and studying. And she's like right in the shadow of that. And she presents herself to this village, to this town, and kind of yells out, bride, I wed myself to the village and invoke the rights of something called a village bride, which is a really interesting concept. This idea that like, someone with no family can show up, and a way to gain access to community is to sort of pledge yourself to join the entire clan and wed yourself to the good of the community. Mm-hmm. And basically just means you're going to be a servant for everybody. You're going to belong to everyone, and everyone can give you tasks to do. Whatever little pieces of shit jobs that nobody else wants to do will fall to this bride or groom of the village. And that's the kind of life that Small Sade is born into. And there's this sort of caveat to the bride or groom thing, which is that you get 3 strikes.
Yeah.
And they tell her first strike is just coming out of the bush, because everybody knows that shit's haunted, and who knows what you brought out with you into our town. So she shows up and gets a strike on her first fucking day. And there's nothing she can do but like suck it up and nod her head and be like, I understand. And that's how they live.
That shit is so annoying.
Yeah, it's so, like at first, when she first talked about it, I was like, oh, what a nice idea. And then like 2 sentences later, I was like, oh, wait, no.
Yeah.
Because something about the idea of being able to claim community and say, I'll be here for like everybody. If you then take care of me and like accept me. Mm-hmm, you're like, oh, that's the kind of community we want to build. Like, so people that are indigent or like, or without means or without family to support them, they have like places to go. But the fucking price, I feel like, is a little too high.
Agreed. Yeah, it's like basically it's something that we all talk about a lot lately with the prevalence of therapy speak, it becoming more part of the conversation. I know that certain things can be overused or misrepresented, whatever, but there is a very strong drive in a lot of us to feel like we need to justify our existence by being useful. Mm-hmm. And this is like the ultimate version of that, where you are constantly having to prove that you deserve to be here in a way that is like extremely demeaning. That it is always made very plain that like, okay, you did it, but you only barely did it, and we still have our eye on you. Like every day you go to bed knowing that just got me through this day. I have to do it all again tomorrow.
It's like the most like extreme version of like earning your keep. and earning your place here. And the minute that like you're physically, we talked about this before in the earlier chapters, about how when you are no longer physically able to be productive, then you just don't count anymore, and you are undeserving of the basic human rights of shelter and food, you know. And this is the sort of wager that Mama Sade has entered into with this village, where as long as she can work and do their shit jobs for them, she'll have a place. And then they're holding these strikes over her head to keep her in line. And there's an interesting thing that pops up where we find out that even though they have like this lower standing in the community as a bride, Small Sade is, as the child, is allowed to have the same amount of respect as all the other children are entitled to. So Mama Sade is allegedly, right? So she's like, you're allowed to walk around and hold your head up high, you know. In the eyes of the elders, you are no less respectable than any other child. So don't let anyone treat you differently. And that's how initially Small Sade moves. But she learns that the town, the village, whatever, doesn't really see her as an equal. Yeah. And she gets bullied even as a small child. But she fights back. And then her skin starts to change. She starts to get her spots. And the village elders all sort of take this as a sign that this is evidence that there's some sort of ill luck that came with Small Sade and Mama Sade out of the bush, you know. Yeah. This is proof. And I think this goes as a second strike.
I think it is. Yeah, that's the second one. So that she decides that she's going to be on her best behavior, but we have it's Yoruba. That's the way she says it in the audiobook. I'm realizing why I thought it was Yoruba. But she has to go and present a crown for this ceremony for the anointed ones.
Yeah, and she works so hard.
This is so frustrating because it's like, what I love about it is that she is not able to read, and we are told earlier that she has an issue that's probably dyslexia. But it proves that this has no bearing on intelligence at all, you know, and she is able to recite every single member of this like bloodline and is the only one not to make a mistake because she applies herself so diligently. And it seems like they resent the fact that she did so well.
It does. And she is so prepared, like she prepares so hard for this because as far as she's thinking that if she gets to crown an anointed one, that would elevate them in their community standing. Like they would be popular. People would like respect them, and it would take such a burden off of her mother and their sort of status as sort of pariahs. And so she works really hard on this, and the night of the festival shows up, and she is, you know, appropriately in awe of how just beautiful every last one of these. I love that inclusion too, that she had never seen, you know, people more beautiful than these people. Like they don't even look human, you know. They're so stunning. The most beautiful creature she had ever seen. And she's praying she doesn't get Sanji, you know, and she's trying to keep track of like who gets what anointed one. And it, you know what, it occurs to me, if setting her up with Sanji is like because of her station, and they don't want
I wonder,
you know, so the other kids got, you know, they just sort of throw her to the wolf. Not that Sanji is a wolf, but you guys know what I'm saying, right? I'm wondering if that's what happened here, where you know.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. Because, yeah, she initially goes in wanting to get Farah. Is that her name?
I think she was Kira. Kira of Blessed
Kira,
Valley.
that's her name.
That's her favorite.
Because her mother has developed this cough, and so she is really trying to find somebody to help with that.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Kira gets... somebody else goes for Kira like right away. So that is clearly not going to be an option, and she's just devastated. But then she loses track, and then when it's him, she not only runs off, but she wets herself in fear first, which is just so sad. And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say she's just standing there, and she's like frozen in fear. And poor Sanjeet is just like, you know, please don't be afraid. And he reaches out for her, and she screams no, and starts screaming at him, calling him Princess Bear. Please don't hurt me. Please don't hurt me. And then she turns and runs, and she doesn't remember much after that. Yeah, it's so sad, you guys.
It's so sad. It really is. Just knowing too, like, that this is something that she was taught.
Mm-hmm.
So it is not her fault. And also the fact that how hurt Sanjeet is by this.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that these are elders that have put all this into motion and taught her the thing, and were low-key disrespecting a anointed one by using him that way.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not the problem. She's the problem. And when they decide to come and kick the two of them out, the word used is ungratefulness. And I just really wanted it to be thrown in their face that, like, you're the one talking about an anointed one like they're a monster. So what do you have to say for yourself about that? But, of course, that's not what we're going to
I love Mama Sade is just like, because when they're yelling at her about sacrilege and ingratitude and everything, and she's just like, you know what? It's not about any of that.
Mm-hmm.
I know how you've been watching my daughter all these years, frowning when she laughs too loud or walks too tall or bests your bratty children in their games. You never wanted her to be grateful. You wanted her to be small, to know always that she's less, to skulk around this town with her head bowed, forever indebted to your cold-blooded charity, but I won't raise her that way. And that is really it.
Yep.
And they tell her basically that this is your last strike. Let it be known that you were officially discarded as a wife. And they have to leave. And they go back to the bush, and with the little bit of life that they can carry. And this is when Sade starts chewing on the inside of her cheek.
Yeah. And
we find out that this, what did she call it? Her pebble stone, or her worry?
Prayer pebble.
Prayer pebble. Thank you. We find out that the origin of this is actually a form of self-harm.
Yeah.
She is chewing the inside of her mouth until her mouth is filled with blood. And then she finds a pebble that's got sharp edges. When the biting her cheek doesn't hurt enough, she finds this stone and sucks on it until she draws more blood. And her mom asks what it is, and she says it's my prayer pebble. It's a prayer pebble, but that's a lie. That's a lie. And that was really particularly heartbreaking.
Yeah. The thing that gets me as well is that, you know, I think some people would feel that the mother's saying in front of her, you wanted her to be small, but I won't raise her that way, that might make it so that Sade would realize that what they were asking was unfair.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you know, but you don't have that kind of processing when you're that young. All you know is that what you did means now you're kicked out.
Yeah, you take everything very literally.
Yeah, and so whether or not you're told that what they did was right, whether it's right is very separate from the actual consequences of it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're small and you know that things are dependent on people's approval, and you begin to really internalize that their approval means having a roof over your head,
mm-hmm.
it makes a lot of sense the way that Sade has just changed the whole way that she moves through the world to accommodate this like expectation. And it's really, I was thinking this, I don't know why it like suddenly occurred to me reading this section, but like, I'm just going to give a sort of general example, but let's say in a story, you have the bad guy who wants to kill the good guy, and the good guy hides out with his friends in their home. And then his friends get killed by the bad guy who was trying to get to him, the good guy. Well, in those stories, usually what happens is the good guy feels so guilty and that it was his fault that his friends are dead. And when I was little and I would read these stories or watch them on TV, I was always mystified at the fact that somebody would feel guilty. My reaction was always, you didn't do anything wrong. The bad guy killed them. Why do you feel guilty? They're the ones who did something wrong. Mm-hmm. And it was a very much like, obviously, you hold the person who did the thing responsible. That's not, Mm-hmm. And it took me a long time to sort of understand the subtleties of feeling guilt sometimes over things that aren't your fault, or taking responsibility for a likely consequence that you knew was out there, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it just really made me think of her reaction here, made me think of how I felt as a kid, of just like, I didn't understand the difference between the way that we feel about something and what is actually correct and true about things. I always felt like those just match up. If you did a bad thing, then you feel bad about it.
Right.
If you do, like that's just how it works. And her sort of, she has kind of a good model with her mother of just being like, no, be yourself, be your full self, try your hardest. Like, this is a good lesson to instill in your child, but it doesn't get rewarded in the world unless you are in a certain position, Yeah,
it really depends on, like, you can get a lesson directly from a parent or a parental figure, but it is much more difficult. Like, it feels very much like Mama Sade is trying to insulate Sade from the sort of bigotry of the townspeople in their sort of classism or whatever you want to call it. But people don't grow up in a vacuum, and you tell the kid all the things when you're home alone with them, but then they still have to go out into the world and see how they're treated and like peep how other people are treated in relation to how you're treated, and noticing the differences. And the lesson that Small Sade ends up taking from this incident is not how hard her mother worked to raise her up with a good sense of self and knowing her worth. What she takes away is the people in power needed me to behave in a certain way in order to allow them to continue to let us be here and take care of us or whatever. And I didn't perform to their expectation. So I cost us what we had. I cost us our home because I didn't recognize the power that these people had over our lives. Which is not the lesson that Mama Sade was trying to impart, right? But it is like, there's a certain amount of reality that Small Sade is actually contending with, but she's doing it as a child in a childish way because she's like a little girl. But she's not wrong, though. Like, what she observed, she's not wrong. There are going to be people in our lives, in our world, that have power over us, and depending on what they want to do to us, they can make our shit very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And that's like a real life fucking lesson. But she just internalizes it to make everything her fault. And that's where we get the whole Small Sade from. This is somehow my largeness had cost us our home, my voice, my no. I had to punish myself and prove to the gods that I was sorry. And this is why she's chewing on the stone. And she thinks to herself, and if she did it well enough, these acts of contrition, if she does it well enough, her and her mother will find a new village. And then her mother will get older, and even the elders would want to marry her forever. And that she promises that she'll never again forget her place. But none of that works out because her mother dies shortly after in the cave in the bush. Yeah.
I keep thinking about being that young and being alone with a parent who dies, and like what the pure aloneness of that. There's no family that she knows of. Like her mother had no siblings, like her parents who I don't know.
I know.
And did she just have to leave her there? Did she bury her? Like, what do you do?
I mean, they're hundreds of miles from a village that Sade never got to see, so she has no idea what her mother's home village even is. Since her mother gave birth to her, they were already in the bush, so she's got like nowhere. And it just says that she laid back down next to her mother after she put some flowers in her hair and went back to sleep. So yeah, it seems like she probably did just leave her there.
Ugh.
Yeah.
On a slightly it's a related but kind of disrespectful note, I guess. I stumbled across this thing while I was shopping on the interwebs the other day, and it's a like afterlife planning, end of life planning. What do you call it when you're planning a funeral and stuff ahead of time? All that
usually end of life planning, pre-planning.
The book's cover, there were two. One of them said, "I'm dead. Now what?"
Nah, I've seen that.
And the other one said, "Well, now that I'm dead, I guess this is your problem." I was like, I got my eye on that one. I think I may have to get that.
Yeah, I have a friend who is pretty much coming up towards their end of life, and they posted that, like, where was this book 6 months ago?
Yeah, I may have to look into that. I just think that's so funny.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of shit that goes into that end of life shit. Like,
yeah,
I mean, on the plus side, you'll be dead, so like, what the fuck do you care? But then on the downside, you're like, how much of a mess do I want to leave behind? You
guys all know that I'm a planner, so if I can literally leave behind a planner full of instructions, I'll die with a lot more peace, I think. Here's the step-by-step. Here's the number to call. Here's the estimated price that I was quoted. Here's the date that was quoted to me. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm thinking about getting one to start, being preparing for my parent, my mom. And then I'm like, shit, I need to get one for myself too, but I'm not quite there yet with like facing reality. Because I don't like planning in my regular life. Like, I don't know if I want to plan for my afterlife.
And I know that I'm going to have to pare down my expectations on what I'm going to get for a celebration versus what we said we would ideally like our funerals to be in that Unsober episode. There's an episode where we plan our own funerals, you guys, and I basically, in the end, was like, I would like a block party and for everybody to have the day off from work and for that to be a permanent holiday for the rest of the existence of the United States.
I think I said I wanted mine to have an open bar.
Yes, that sounds right.
Because I had been to one, and the repast was at a bar, at an open bar. It was the first time I mean, like, usually in my family, you go and you get drunk in the parking lot outside of the funeral home. Like I know I told this story when it happened, but at my dad's funeral, we were outside having a smoke like around the corner. And at one moment, we all looked at each other, and like, I opened my bag and I had a bottle in my bag. My sister had a bottle in her bag. My cousin had a bottle in his, and my brother was like, "Oh, word!" He went to his trunk and opened the trunk and came back with a bottle from his.
I love it.
And we were just outside drinking outside of the fucking funeral home.
I am sure that is like just a common occurrence for them.
Oh God. All right. So the next chapter, as we try to segue back into this, she is doing the crocodile's hair, because at the end of the last chapter, he's talking about how he needs a retwist.
Mm-hmm.
And she's told her story, and everybody, well, not everybody, it's just him and Clement. But they're having that moment where you like tell your life story in like a very matter of fact way, or like maybe you make a really inappropriate joke that you think is funny based on your trauma, and then the person you're talking to is like, "Oh my God." Mm-hmm. That's the look she's getting from both the crocodile and the fucking lizard. Even Clement is like, "God damn."
Clement just fucked up from the ground. Yeah, she seems genuinely so taken aback, because the first thing that the crocodile says is spit it out.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't even understand what it is he means. And he's like, "I've seen the stone in your mouth. I just didn't know what it was. Spit it out." And this reaction here, it doesn't mean anything. An old habit, and it's a different stone from when I was little, not as sharp, and I do not use it all the time, only when, like, just trying to justify how actually this kind of self-harm isn't really that bad and doesn't actually count.
Right, yeah.
And, this is what we all do with all kinds of versions of self-harm. Pick your poison, and this is how we sound. And we sound this way because we fucking know, and we just don't want to face what that really means. And
because we believe we deserve it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We believe we deserve it. We believe that we're not getting punished enough for whatever failings we may suspect that we have. And that if people really knew the real us, they would encourage the punishment. The only reason he's saying you don't deserve this is because he doesn't really know me. If he really knew me, then he would know I deserve this and so much worse, And she releases the pebble, and it says, "He goes there, he breathed. And for some reason I could not explain, his relief made me want to cry." That, I don't know. So that just really fucking hit. That really, really hit. And she is so moved, but in a way that she's uncomfortable with. She shoves him away and starts to distract herself with hair oils and whatnot. And then she goes back into telling the rest of her story, or trying to like tell the rest of the story in this very matter of fact way. She talks about, when she first gets to Digit Town, what happened to her, that she worked with in a gang, and then they got trafficked, and she was lucky enough that she got trafficked to a sweat mill instead of a pleasure bazaar, which is a really interesting way to frame that, but okay. I guess there are people that still call them pleasure houses, so I guess pleasure bazaar is not that strange of a phrase.
Yeah. It's always interesting to me in different universes how they they describe this sort of thing, because
they all have this sort of thing, don't they?
Yeah, it's always there. Just how are we going to refer to it? What kind of very seemingly civilized veneered language are we going to use for this one?
Yep. So she says to him, now you know why I can't go to the anointed ones. It's unlikely they remember what I did to them, but basically I don't even want to take that chance. And she gets cut off because the crocodile is like, bitch, what? What you did to them? What are you even talking about? You were a frightened little girl who backed out of a silly ritual. And he also says, and they would never have punished you. They would have fought for you.
Yeah.
And he says, and if their benevolent shadows loom so large that without trying, their mere presence ruins the life of a little girl, then perhaps the anointed ones should not exist, he starts to say. And she just interrupts him again and is just like, she doesn't want this. He is trying to tell her she's not responsible for what happened. And she doesn't want to hear it because she's that tethered to these feelings of responsibility and guilt and loathing that she doesn't want to hear somebody trying to convince her that it's not her fault.
Yeah.
And the way that she flips it back on him is to say, you don't understand. I don't know what the world is like where you live, but the world that I live in does not care what people deserve. It cares about rules, and it cares about rules for people like me.
Yeah.
And I know what happens when people like me break those rules.
That was such a good way to say this. They don't care about what you deserve. They care about rules. And then she corrects herself. Well, they care about rules for people like me. Awareness of like, yeah, that's not exactly correct, is it?
Yeah. And he just checking her out for a second. And then he just asks her, are you doing the sin salon as punishment for yourself? And she immediately is like, no, I'm doing it because some of us have to work. Some of us need jobs. And he's like, but why that job in particular? What if I could get you something else? And she stops for a second and thinks about this. You know, maybe what would it be like if I did leave?
Yeah.
And she realizes that she has grown quite attached to the amenities and wouldn't want to leave them. But what she says out loud is, I don't know. And that the salon is in 7 days and we're going to be so busy, I don't have time to look for anything else anyway. And if Mama Deli were to find out that I'd been offering my services elsewhere, if she were to even hear of that, I'd get fired on the spot. Which is, again, you know, the sort of reality of her situation. She's not wrong here. But he says to her that, like, it wouldn't matter because I could find you somewhere else. And he says, what if you came and lived at Bikini House? And he has to be like, oh, by the way, that's what it's called.
I don't know why it didn't occur to me that this is fucking Bikini House, everybody.
Same.
Literally didn't enter my mind. I felt like such a fucking dodo bird. Oh my God.
Yep.
Obviously. Yeah. And also, I have been operating under the assumption that he's out here hiding in this house and that not even Tarasai knows that he's alive. But apparently she fucking knows. Like, this is all...
You didn't think that that's who the Boss Almighty was?
No, I thought it was Zix.
I had a suspicion that it was Tarasai. I didn't say anything about it because I didn't have anything to back it up with. But the way that he said, the way when he first says it about Boss Almighty, I was like, is that Tarasai?
That is funny.
But she says to him, are you asking me to be your cleaning lady or something else? Raised eyebrows.
Yeah, it's a good thing that she specified the question, because it's very clear when he replies, it did not occur to him how that was going to sound. And yeah, sir, I mean, you're basically like, why don't you just move in with me? What is that? Well, then what are we? We have to have a fucking relationship conversation now.
And then we find out that this chemistry, this tension between the two of them is real. There's something happening there. He tells her that I love it. While it is fairly obvious, I have wanted to kiss you ever since you scolded me. I was like, really? Fairly obvious? I mean, maybe a little like suspicious, but fairly obvious. Yeah.
I think he fancies himself as being a lot more revealing than he is.
I think he fancies himself a lot of different things.
Oh my God, I was middle of drinking my tea. Sorry. Oh God, that got me. You are correct. I think he would have really liked that joke, actually.
But he tells her that, like, I would never touch you unless you asked me to. The place is huge. I would be in a different wing if you wanted. You would only need to stay until you found a better place. Like, he's trying to sell it.
Yeah.
And he says, this would be a place. He says, in the spa, you said you wanted a home you could get lost in, a place that always changes yet somehow stays the same. And I cannot think of any place like that more than Bikina House. And she is like looking at him. And he stops talking, and she starts to talk, and then she closes her mouth, and then finally she's like, it was not obvious.
I love that he's done 2 full paragraphs since the first thing that he said. Mm-hmm. But she is fixated, understandably, on the first part. So when she addresses that instead of all the other stuff that he said, he's lost. Like, he doesn't seem to understand what the fuck she's even replying to. And she has to explain, and he's just like, God.
That's all the more embarrassing that she has to be like, no, that thing that you said. That
she can't say that you wanted to kiss me. She has to be like, on the roof. I was just like, oh, this is painful, babe. Jesus.
Mm-hmm. So then he says, she's like, it's not obvious. And he's like, that surprises me. I am known for many things, but subtlety is not one of them. He is very, very funny.
Don't encourage him,
So, they have a conversation a little bit more, because now she's starting to wonder about this bond that they have. And she wonders if she had enslaved him by accident. Was their bond forcing him to help her? She's basically questioning his motives.
And she's also wondering if he's only attracted to her because she's attracted to him and he feels that, so it's influencing him unfairly. Mm-hmm. And he laughs in her face. It is very funny. He just sort of snorts and then tries to, no, I do not think that is what is happening. Oh, bless her.
I love this phrase, suffer no anxiety on that point. I really like that. That's like a really funny way to be like, don't even worry about that. That's not it. No worries. All. Yeah, right. That's no worries. That's one of my favorite things to say to people when they're like apologizing for like a whatever small thing, and I'm always just like, no worries. And then there was a meme that went around, or a tweet that was like, bitches be like, no worries, and didn't worry, don't do nothing but worry.
Me, I'm bitches. Yep. All right. So she doesn't give him a real answer here, but things happen that cause her to really change her mind. And it's funny because, like, as this conversation wraps up, she mentions about knowing that he's from Djibouti, and he's like, how do you know that? Like, she's keeping something from him. And she's like, because I know other people and you sound like them. That's like somebody being like, Addie, now I'm Australian. Like, what are you talking about? Of course, what do you mean? So, yeah, he kind of seems to relax there, but she says, I will only consider staying if you tell me your name. And he says, you are going to come up with a name for me. Later on, that's like his deal, is why don't you come up with one? Also, they are in this weird space where he can't like contact her easily, so he has to come up with a way to do that. And eventually, when he does, it's very funny because it's this like wind spell that traps his voice inside of gourds.
Oh my God.
And it's like so ungainly because this poor overworked gecko has to drag the fucking thing behind him because they're big sometimes. It seems like every time they have more to say, the gourd has to be bigger to hold more wind. Right.
It does seem that way.
So there comes a point where this man is just monologuing. And I'm just imagining, like, the fact that it's harder for the gecko to drag this big gourd, and me taking video and then pressing send on a text and the video saying loading for like 4 minutes as the bar slowly, because the file is so big that the phone is just like, Jesus, Cheeky. All right, fine, I'll do it. Just hold on. And that's what I feel like poor climate. But yeah, so I'm jumping ahead a little bit. I just had to. So finally, the first thing that happens when she starts to go back is she gets waylaid by Mama Dele. I was worried you'd been poached. This woman is sobbing over her, and she thinks it's because Mama Dele is worried about me. I was worried you'd been poached, that you'd hoard yourself out to one of my rivals like some sneaky little traitor. But here you are, my good girl, my darling, loyal Small Sade.
Oh.
So this is followed up by a bump in pay, a separate, nicer room, which Sade doesn't even want because she likes sleeping with her friends in the same room.
Yep.
And overall, it's like, I'm going to treat you like you're better than the rest of them in a way that sets you apart and might make them resent you.
Yep.
And I'm going to pretend that this is me doing you like so many favors.
Yeah. I'm going to treat you just like I treat simple Hanuni. You know, I treat her like family. And if you keep being my good girl, why, you might almost be a daughter to me. And families do not turn their backs on each other, do they, Small Sade? Like, this is so fucking manipulative and so gross. And
it's so gross.
It's a fucking lot to take in. And it says she pinched my chin and smiled, but didn't let me go until I smiled back. Like, yeah. And then the other kids, the other amenities are just like, you know, I guess we should call you Fancy Sade now when she goes back downstairs. And this makes Sade feel very like outsider again. And so she insists that she's still just an amenity and she wants an amenity name. Secretly, I felt guilty asking for one now that I had considered leaving the inn altogether. But the Crocodile's offer still felt like a far, far dream. And the more tirelessly everyone worked to prepare for my debut, the more selfish that dream seemed. So she's already feeling indebted, not to necessarily to Mama Dele, but to the other amenities, because their workload is increasing to prepare for this salon. And so she's feeling like she can't leave them behind. She doesn't want to, because she, you know, has actually started to feel like part of a family. But also on top of that, there's a layer of guilt, because that's how Sade, like, of course there is.
Yeah.
You know, of course there's going to be a layer of guilt there. Yeah.
Yeah. So eventually, there is the surprise sprung on Sade that I have a person here for you to do a little preview performance for.
You guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Lord Liao.
Yeah, this is the same man that Mama Deli was hoping would marry Deli, too.
Yeah.
Just so when you think about that, once we find out what his deal is, and then you realize that this is who, like, ugh.
Yeah. Correct. So, first, I just hate the fact that Sade didn't know that she was going to have to do this, like, so immediately.
Mm-hmm.
She's put in the room alone with him, and Mama Dele acts like she's being silly for being worried about this, but, like, clearly, first of all, we find out there's very legitimate reasons, but also her reputation could be tarnished from being alone with him. And that could be something that really comes back to bite her. But of course, Mama Dele has no concerns on that front because what do you care? Why would you worry about your reputation when you're living with me and safe with me? All you need is me. Yeah, you know. So
Mama Deli also is like, I'm going to be outside the room with wax in my ears so I don't overhear his confessions, but doesn't offer any wax to Sade. Like, doesn't even
first,
think about
he listed
her.
the names of women, fellow scholars from his days at the Academy of the Realm, interspersed with how grateful they should have been for his aid, how much of their success was owed to those salons in his private rooms, and how cruel they were to avoid him afterward, how seldom they mentioned his kindness in discussions among their peers. But in the end, he simply uttered one phrase over and over as thick, veiny gilt worms plopped into the basin, glistening with iridescent mucus. At least I always waited until they were sleeping.
Jesus fucking Christ. Yeah. Yeah. This is beyond. Just beyond. And the thing is, it doesn't seem like Mama Deli is surprised. She's just getting the details, but definitely she's already aware that there's rumors.
There's a real sense of, like, yeah, very much so. And on top of this, so she comes over, she made soothing noises and cradled me in her lap, stroking my head as I hiccuped with shock. I had not been held at length since I left my mother in that cave. Against my will, my body relaxed in Mama Dele's embrace. I know it was hard hearing all of those unpleasant things about Lord Liao and his pupils, but you did a good thing. You have the power to comfort people who are suffering, and if you ever withheld that power, well, that would be prideful, wouldn't it? To decide who gets to be happy and who doesn't, that would be cruel. And you aren't cruel, Small Sade. Tell me you aren't proud and cruel.
Yeah. When Sade is actually doing the cleaning and he's watching her, Lord Liao is watching her choke down the worms, even though he can't actually see the worms. It says he still craned his neck to observe as I keeled over, chin tucked to my chest, both hands pressed to my lips as my throat heaved. There, he purred excitedly as my eyes burned with tears. Keep it down. Breathe through it. Good girl. Like, he's, like...
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's definitely somebody fascinated with the pain and degradation of other people.
Yeah. And she says, Mama Deli says, please remember, Sade says, I do not want to be cruel, in response to Madame Deli being like, tell me you aren't proud and cruel. And then Mama Deli says, good, I'm so glad to hear you say that working here with me is just what you want. Please remember that you said that. that here just now you said that this life is what you want. And Sade is like, I'm not sure I said.
Mm-hmm.
And Mama Deli just cuts her off. We're going to have to get to work on strengthening your stomach, because in 3 days there's going to be 20 Laura Leaos and you're going to serve them all at once. You are so generous. Yeah, this is like disgusting. Disgustingly vile. And when Sade had gone downstairs and had been with the other amenities, like, they are a little upset that she is going along with this.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, you guys, this line got me so bad. Everybody seems like alarmed and worried about her. Even Finrick, who had looked forward to a night of wealthy patrons filling the inn, awkwardly patted my shoulder and mumbled that upon further reflection he found the idea of a sin salon, quote, rather unsustainable as a business practice, unquote. Mm-hmm. I could not stop laughing, y'all. It's not about whether this is the right thing to do. It's like that's part of it in his deepest mind, but he won't acknowledge that.
Exactly.
So he's just going to frame it as like, well, I'm actually being like fiscally intelligent about it. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, whatever. My fucking guy.
Yeah.
So this illness, I can't help but wonder if it's like, you know, they had all been seeming like they felt a little bit resentful, but after they see how she's feeling and what she has to go through, I wonder if they're sort of like, actually, maybe you are earning that fucking room that you're staying in and that raise that you were given, you know? Like,
yeah.
I wonder if that resentment starts to peter away a little bit after
I think
this
it has
kind
to.
of display. Right. Ugh. Also, here's something that I thought of that I don't know is valid. And I really can't imagine that this didn't occur to Mama Sade. I feel like it must have, or Mama Dele. But these people are pouring out their sins and she's hearing them. And that is some good blackmail.
Absolutely.
Even if Sade didn't stay, if she did this like on a few people of the right rank, you could really fuck somebody with this info. Now, there's no witnesses. There's no necessarily proof, you know?
I think that that's definitely going to be part of the thing.
Okay.
I think the
I
fact...
was like, am I going too far with this?
Yeah,
okay.
I think the fact that she goes out of her way to sort of assure Lord Liao that, oh, don't worry, I'm going to have wax in my ears. You're going to be completely, you know, and then does the exact opposite and listens, and knowing how desperate she is to regain her status, and also she heard these same people talking shit about her outside. Yeah, like, remember she overhears them.
That was my first thought, was simply like, oh, after them talking about you like that, it would feel really good to have this sort of advantage.
Yeah. I think that's definitely going to be, or even if it doesn't come to fruition in the book proper, I think that that's definitely part of Mama Dele's motivation, and it's definitely something that she's considering as a way to regain power over these people. Yeah. So yeah, she has to do this. The plan is for her to do this for 20 fucking people all at once. Like, this is impossible.
How do you think that's going to work? I don't understand looking at her and even thinking she could survive that.
I agree.
Like, setting aside just the fact that it's cruel, she I don't think she could get through a single more person.
Yeah. I think that Mama Dele is living in like, she's just I hate to like throw the word narcissistic around and everything, but she's not seeing reality. She's seeing what like she wants to see. And all she can see is this little girl who can do something that benefits herself and benefits her business. And like, cause if she was smart and being realistic, she would space these out, because if Sade is really this new product of yours, which is how she's viewing her, this new thing she owns, you would think you'd want to take care of it so that you have it longer.
Mm-hmm.
But she's like gonna blow her whole load. Sorry for the phrasing.
How
but she's gonna like all in one shot. Like, this is not how you take care of a high value commodity of yours.
Also, if we're going to talk about it in business terms, you should have this man be your example and then have one person a month and make that shit real expensive, real exclusive.
Yep.
And that way she gets a break and you can have a stranglehold on something nobody else is able to provide.
Yep.
And use that. Like, doing 20 people at once to me feels like you are squandering a really good opportunity here, because it's not the service that's going to get you your status back. It's your possession of the service.
Mm-hmm. And this is why what Fenric says about it being rather unsustainable as a business practice is actually like dead on, because doing the idea of the salon is specifically what he says, not the eating of the cursors or whatever 101, but the idea of the sin salon, because he's saying from a business practice, this is not, you're not going to be able to do this long term. This is just not a good business model. So yeah, I guess he was kind of right. Even though it's like a really like kind of callous way to offer somebody comfort. But so she starts thinking about what if running the sin salon, I was committing the same vice as when I ran from the anointed. What if by refusing Mama Deli, I was killing Mama Sade all over again? I was like, how did we get here?
Yeah, I don't understand that one either.
And it's
like,
just,
is it ungratefulness? Is it because she's still sort of believing that bullshit line?
I think so, because it starts out, would I truly be proud if I ran? Like, she's wondering, how would I think about myself if I ran from here? Would I be proud of myself for like sticking up for because everybody is basically telling her that this is like, you can't do this. You need to protect yourself. The Crocodile has been sending these gourd notes telling her that, she doesn't deserve this, that she doesn't need to punish herself. He even says at one point, I'll be anyone you like. Please don't do this. Like, so she's starting to think, everybody is telling me that this is not good for me and I should stand up for myself and not let myself be used in this way. But in her mind, she can't really see herself as being worth protecting in this way.
Yeah.
So the thought of running to save herself in her mind gets conflated with the same sins of what she thinks of are the sins of running from the anointed ones and getting her and her mother kicked out of the village. But she's also like, the thought of doing what I had just done for 20 fucking people sent my nerves crackling like fire, like oil on a brazier.
Brazier, yeah.
Like Frasier?
Yeah, exactly. Like oil on a Frasier. That is $200 an ounce truffle oil, have you know.
Oh, that's so specific.
So, yeah, this is just, guys, this whole scene is so, everything about it, what she's being put through, the reason that she's being put through it, what he is unloading on her, and the fact that the point of this is to make bad people feel less bad for the things that they clearly don't feel bad enough about anyway, because they're still fucking doing them. Mm-hmm. So you're basically wiping away the shame, but the action and the consequences of that action are still there, which is worst case scenario, like literally.
Mm-hmm.
LaShawn and I say often on all our different shows that we have recorded, we need more shame in the world.
Yep.
You know, and I stand by that. And I know, like, I don't mean like shame about the stupid, goofy shit that we do feel shame for. It's completely misplaced. We need more shame for things that folks seem to have none surrounding. And
like how they treat other people, for instance.
Exactly.
You know, like, yeah, you should have a little shame for yelling at that cashier for no fucking reason, you know, or yelling at your kids for no fucking reason, or just being a dick to somebody for no reason. Like, yeah, where's your shame? Or being like wildly ignorant and refusing to educate yourself or bring yourself up to speed on things, or just get new information, you know, that kind of shit. Yeah. Where's your shame?
Where's your shame? So the fact that it's like, it's not even, I'm going to absorb the sins that are things you've tried to atone for but can't seem to shake. You know, it's just stuff that you did that you deserve to feel bad about. For rich people who already face no consequences for what they've done. Wow. Like, ew. Just
cleaning them up so they can go get dirty again. Yeah. So she goes to bed after all this. Finally, it's time for bed. And she starts really deciding that she is going to leave. I'm going to leave tonight. And then she remembers how kind the amenities have been to her. And she decides that they deserve a proper goodbye. So I'm going to leave in the morning. And besides, I'm exhausted from today's events anyway. I don't even have the energy to go out.
Yeah.
And she is thinking about maybe how life in Bikini House would not be so bad. And, you know, an enchanted villa in a magical nowhere, you know, is not exactly the life I had dreamed of building for myself. But I could probably get used to it, and it didn't even have to be forever. And maybe I could even still see the amenities, you know, on their days off from work. And then Clemme pops up.
Fucking Clemme.
She thinks it might be the crocodile, and she gets a little stomach flutter, which I thought was very cute. But it's not the crocodile visiting. It is the other one. Alexis? What is it? Ixalix. Oh my god, that's like, what is the thing? Oh, is it Batman? It has the villain. Come on,
that's not what I was expecting.
There's a cartoon villain. I think it's Batman world, but maybe it's Superman world. I think it's DC, but there's a villain that exists in the comic world or the cartoon world where the only way to get rid of them is to get them to say their name. I think his name is like Misoplixix or something. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I thought you were talking about Rumpelstiltskin for a
second. Somebody out there knows what I'm talking about. Y'all know. And you got to get him to say his name. And I want to say you have to get him to say his name backwards, but I might be putting a little extra razzle dazzle on it. It might not have to be said backwards.
You should text Owen about it. He'll know.
He would know, wouldn't he?
He'd know all about it.
But it is I've forgotten already that fast how you say it. Ixalix. That's who is coming for Small Sade. And yeah. This was
this bitch.
Oh, y'all.
This bitch. I do not like her. I do not at all. She is over here. She's literally only here to be like, hey, let go of ever trying to fix him for reasons that aren't really specific enough. I'm going to tell you his life story, but none of that is really going to prove that you can't fix him. And then I'm going to remind you that I do only want you to not fix him because I would like a pet.
I have a fabulous assortment of beasts, and I'm really looking forward to adding him to my menagerie. So if you would just let him continue to suffer, that would be swell.
I truly, you guys, oh my God. I could not believe the stone cold silver plated audacity of coming here to deliver this message, to blow up his spot. First of all, she doesn't have permission to tell this. You know, she's just doing this because she is hoping to interfere with his recovery. Ew.
Also, this drinking of the not drinking.
The tears?
She's dropping tears into her own eyes, I think. A drop in each eye does wonders for the nerves. The tears of a child who has lost its favorite toy. Not too sad, though a little whiny.
I'm so sorry.
When Small Sade is talking about what the gods are like and how you can't trust them and they play with you as like toy, this is who the fuck she's talking about.
This is psychotic behavior. Do you hear me? This is psychotic. This whole thing, my mouth was just hanging open. I was so mad that Sade takes this to heart too. Like, all of this, in my opinion, would, if I were in her shoes as myself, obviously, like with my personality that I currently have, all this would make me more determined, because I would be so furious that my response to her would be like, well, now I really want to screw you out of the things you want. Like, I don't like you. I don't want you to get what you're after here. And I want you to low-key be responsible for the fact that I doubled my efforts, so that you know you just made me go harder. I hated this. I'm so angry. Just like second time around, I'm still so angry. I really am.
So we get some confirmation about who the crocodile is, and it turns out that it is in fact Zuri. And Sade gets the whole story about making a second council for Empress Tarasai, and what Zuri did, pretending to be a fool but actually was leading a rebellion. That then he let himself, it was, she calls an intentional suicide because his work is done. She tells us about the lodestone and the weird gem that was in sort of the crypts of his family's castle, or somewhere that they had, and that he did normally what you would do with the green stone is you would use it to enslave someone else with the Eru.
The Eru, yeah.
But what he did, she says, in an act so audacious, even I did not believe it when I first heard about it. Zuri chose to enslave himself. He bound his Eru power to a single wish for the old rulers to cast down their crowns and for those they exploit to rise up.
All right, look, I know I'm not supposed to react this way, but what a fucking G.
Real talk.
Enslaved himself, until he freed the that is serious behavior, sir. That is, he is really on that shit. Then that he means it. Ooh, that is an attractive act. Indeed. It's I know it's problematic as fuck to be I need a man who will literally put his own well-being in jeopardy, but low-key, I like it.
I do like it. I like it a lot. And we already know that this motherfucker is fine as hell too.
Yep.
I love too what she's done with making Zuri having not aged So he's still closer to Sade's age than the Anointed Ones because it's been like 10 years. But he's still like, 18 or 19 or whatever. So like that way I don't have to feel like it's gross, this attraction between Zuri and Small Sade.
Yes, I definitely feel like that was extremely tactical on her part to do that. And I same appreciate it. This is also like how I felt about, obviously a much grosser example, but the fact that George R. R. Martin made Cersei and Jaime twins so that there was no age gap at all.
Oh, right. So it wouldn't be like
really,
one taking advantage of the other. And yeah. It's a nice little loophole that they found.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. But anyway, okay, so yeah, this oh god, I'm sorry you guys. I'm so the story itself, I had forgotten some of how it went, so I appreciated the reminders of this. I didn't recall that like the word we got of his death was that he was killed and witnessed the death was witnessed, but that his body just vanished.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that was mentioned, like not that he vanished in front of their eyes, but that basically nobody knew what had happened to the body.
Yeah, I think it was too.
And the stone that was embedded in his flesh was not explained in Tarasai's books. Right?
I don't think so, no.
So I really do kind of love that she clearly had set up something that she could come back to with him as a character and was like, all right, I'm going to put this little mystery here and I'm not going to answer it right away because if I feel like I want to come back to this, then I'll have somewhere to start. And when we were reading the original two books, I don't remember if I said something about how we never find out what the deal is with that stone, but I don't think I mentioned it, which means that I didn't find it unsatisfying that we don't find out. And I think that is a very difficult line to walk, where you leave some questions unanswered, but don't make your readers feel like they got an ending that is incomplete.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I'm trying to remember how much we talked about it and if it came up, and honestly, I can't remember. But I don't remember. Well, it's hard for me because, I just don't remember, period. That's just like a full sentence for me. I don't remember.
Oh, no.
I love this bit too, because what, Jesus Christ.
Ixalix?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What they're doing is they're showing like this like a movie in the pool. Mm-hmm. So we get to a scene where it's talking about Zuri and Tarasai and how she was one of the few people who knew his true identity. And then it says, "You'll guess the next thing I saw in the pool. For that reason, it is difficult for me to speak just now, even as you encouraged me to go on." This is Small Sade talking to us, the reader. Mm-hmm. And it says, "In a scene that made my heart sink to my sandals, the crocodile drew into his arms the most beautiful girl I had ever seen." And we get a description of Tarasai again, who was quite stunning. And he slit his palm, pressed it to hers, and wrapped a cloth around both of their hands. Then they stared into each other's eyes like twin gods, statues of polished obsidian. And the space closed between them, and I looked away. I can't remember exactly what that was. I
think that was bonding him to her Ray. Maybe not.
Okay, maybe that's how they did it then, because they had to come up with a sort of a new ritual for her council. Because the one that they did when they were children didn't really apply. So maybe that's what that is. That actually sounds right to me. So thank you for that. But all Small Sade is seeing is, who this other bitch? And why she's so pretty? Why she's so pretty? She all up on my man like that.
I felt so bad for her. This is like you know, it's already difficult to know that your ex had super hot people in their past, but it's extra difficult when you are already self-conscious about your looks, and there's always been like snide comments made that you just, hate it. A part of me was like, Ixalix, did you make her prettier in this vision? Just to like fucking fuck with her a little bit?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
She's just, I don't trust her. I don't like anything about this.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking about like exes and the girls that they had before I was with them. And it's it's so good because of my age. Like, and I never really saw what anybody's exes look like because I was moving around so much also. So it wasn't like I was living in one community and like I knew two people were dating and then they broke up and then I started dating the guy. So it's very like I'm trying to think if I've ever even seen a picture of anybody's ex, and I think maybe just Steve had a picture of his ex-girlfriend, like one picture.
And you're like still friendly, or had been, with somebody that he had dated.
Yeah, I'm friendly. Right? Yeah, but I don't. It's weird. Like I don't count them as like serious girlfriends. Okay. But the one like really serious relationship he had before he met me, I'd seen a picture of her, and then I met like other girls that he had dated and like hung out with or hooked up with, and I'm friends with a lot of them. I never actually became friends with his like serious ex because she like they're not in contact. Like the other girls he stayed friends with, so that's how I got to meet them. But he didn't stay friends with the ex, so there was never an opportunity for us. Like, and she was from a completely different social circle as well, so our paths never ever crossed in all these years.
Gotcha. Okay,
but she was really pretty though. I remember seeing the picture and being like, "Damn." Well,
I think that I have been hotter than all the exes of any of the guys that I have dated. And I don't mean that to be like, I think I am self-conscious enough in my appearance that I was strategic about picking people that I felt would be overwhelmed by my appearance because they hadn't dated anybody as hot as me before.
Oh, interesting strategy.
Yeah. So that's something I gotta reckon with.
A little journal action.
Yep. I recognized that was like a source of power, and I was like, all right, well, let me do that then. I can ensure that nobody else will ever have come close, and then they'll just put up with whatever from me, you know. And let me tell you guys, that only works if you decide that you are going to work on keeping your looks at all, which I did not.
Oh shit, that's funny.
There's this there's this moment you can't, like, and you can try and keep yourself attractive, but like you're gonna age. You can't avoid it.
Nope.
And it's sort of a weird line that I tried to walk, where I'm like, well, I want to date somebody for whom appearance isn't everything, where they do appreciate intelligence and personality, but also I'm going to use how I look, though, you know. But there's a line in, what is it, Desperate Housewives, where there's a character who is a model and her husband's name is Carlos, and they're like debating over the amount of space her like maintenance supplies take up in the bathroom. And he says something like, do you have to be so high maintenance? And she just turns and looks at him and says, you married a model, Carlos. maintenance is my only skill. I fell out laughing. I was like, oh man, true enough. Guys want the appearance, but they want it to be effortless. Mm-hmm. They don't want to be reminded that you have to like do things to achieve.
Nobody
that.
wants to see how the sausage is made.
That's the one. Yeah. Anyway, so in the end, she talks about how when he like came back to himself, it was in the middle of a street, apparently.
Yes. He's like about
and we
to
had
get
jumped
trampled.
ahead in time. I swear to God, I had thought that he'd like resurrected inside that house, which would already be very disorienting, but being resurrected into a group of like completely irrelevant people and a whole decade almost has passed.
Mm-hmm. It's probably the same place in the street. I don't know if it says it specifically or not, just that, you know, he wakes up in the middle of a bustling town street. And I was like, is this where his supposed demise happened? Did he just materialize in the same, like...
That's what I was assuming. Yeah.
Because, it would just be a regular day. Like, this is just a Tuesday now. This is like the riots and the uprising happened 10 years ago. Now this is just Tuesday on 6th Street. And he just wakes up there.
That would be so... embarrassing doesn't even begin to cover it. And then he has to like figure out when it is because he doesn't realize the time has passed.
No, he still has his weapons in his hands that he supposedly died with.
Bless him. And eventually he does make his way to the palace, and he tries to just get enfolded back into the routine with all of the anointed ones, but the age difference and the time missing and all of it makes it way too weird. Mm-hmm. And he finally is just like, I can't do this. I need to find another way to be, because clearly picking up where I left off, it's not going to work. And this is when Tarasai offers Bakina House and is like, well, I can have you like doing shit with the abilities that you have. But at first he's like, oh, I'm not going to use those powers because it hastens this transformation that I am undergoing. But eventually when he meets them, trying to find the spot with Ixalix where he attempted what many men do. He tries to kill himself a bunch of times, but it doesn't work. And the stones embedded in his body dumped him in my rainforest in Quetzala. So that's how she runs across him and encourages him to keep using his ability to get his transformation accelerated.
Yeah, it's like she's mentoring him from his perspective. She's just helping him figure out how to use these powers in a way that's like beneficial, but it's actually, you know, pushing him closer and closer to turning into whatever. This description too. Then I noticed the scales developing on his arms, apparently as punishment for not fulfilling his wish. The Eru curse was transforming him into something mindless, something glorious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when Tarasai says you tricked him, Ixalix gets very defensive. I did not. Zuri knew what I wanted. He even agreed to it once I assured him transforming into a beast would dull his memories, alleviating the pain of his past. And it's very interesting, this like theme of guilt and trying to escape your actions, and how he's doing this by like sacrificing himself. And we just had people doing it by trying to sacrifice Sade. Just, a very different approach is all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's definitely a big theme of this whole story is the guilt that we carry and how it changes us, you know, like whether it's the guilt worms, whether it's Sade, whether it's Crocodile literally transforming. And I love this, that she says that, you know, and had he stayed by my side, we both would have gotten what we wanted. But the trouble is spirits gossip. These motherfuckers can't keep their mouth shut. And other Alekbatos started to hear about her, what she calls her pet boy king. And they snitched to the Ray Bearers. And Terasai, who was part Alekbato herself, she says, and because of that, a lot of spirits possessed an inconvenient loyalty to her. I love that.
LOL. I bet it was. Yeah, this the whole idea here of her just like trying to keep it secret. It's again evidence of the fact that she knew she was doing something fucked up. Just saying like, well, but he agreed to it. Like, still, you know. Yeah.
She wanted to keep him all to herself. She knew that she was doing something. Well, I don't know if morals really apply to the Alekbatos in a way that we do as far as like right and wrong and, you know, hiding.
I do.
I mean, what I mean is like there's a hiding. I feel like her hiding of him was not necessarily. It was more about her being selfish. Like, I want to keep them all to myself. Not that she necessarily thought that, oh, I'm hiding something because I think I'm transgressing. I'm hiding it because I want it for me. It's mine, you know.
Interesting. Okay. Maybe.
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 But once word on the street gets out, it says that the scene changes, and now it's a scene of the Anointed Ones, and the crocodile is now with them, and he's clean and dressed, and they all rush to embrace him, and Zuri is relieved to actually be back among people who had known him. But as you said earlier, the fact that he is 9 years younger than everybody else and has been through this very unique experience, he just does not feel right. And they also are unable to heal him. They've tried all these different things and nothing works. Yeah. And then one of the Anointed Ones, who I had forgotten about, has the gift of prophecy, and they make those tapestries, and they make a tapestry with a face on it, and it is Small Sade's face. So that's the face in the tapestry that UN had talked about at the beginning of the book. And how they knew to look for Small Sade. That's how that happened. And I was
so it's wild because Ixalix is very cavalier about the fact that she showed up in a prophecy. She's just like, well, that doesn't mean anything. And I'm like, doesn't it mean something? Like, I feel like you are really acting as if this is totally nothing in a way that has this person's prophecies proved to be wrong before. You don't mention their track record overall, I noticed, and I just think that's suspicious. You know what I'm saying? Okay.
I love that idea. Like this, oh, it's a prophecy, but those are a dime a dozen. It means nothing.
Just like, I would like to see some statistics. Any studies? Is this a peer review? So it was a setback for me, but I knew it was only a matter of time until Zuri's transformation was complete. I need only wait. And so in the meantime, I gifted Zuri the gecko spirit, the one you saw fit to name Cleme. I told that gecko to keep the boy king out of trouble, but the creature interpreted my command as an invocation to break Zuri's curse, which is why it decided to find you, tiresome creature. She glowered at Cleme, who shrank in fear where he perched on the far wall of the spa. Serves me right for endowing a gecko with intelligence. You are lucky that I am too proud to kill anything I have made.
Jesus Christ.
I hate her. So yeah, she's just like, who the fuck are you? Nobody. You can't do shit. And I just thought I should tell you so that you don't waste your damn time and then wind up sad and disappointed when it doesn't work, because I already know it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And
she also,
all the spirits, I know of your past humiliation with the Anointed Ones. All the spirits do. You were not meant to intersect with higher things, my dear. On the contrary, you know better than anyone what happens when you step outside your sphere.
And if that is not proof that this bitch is not to be trusted, I don't know
That's
what is.
the one.
Right. That's it right there. That's it. That's everything. right there. And the fact that the Anointed Ones, once the tapestry is done, they want to go find Small Sade immediately. But Zuri is like, no, don't even bother, because he doesn't think he can be cured, and he also doesn't think he deserves to be cured. And decides that he doesn't. There's no purpose in living as a human in obscurity. So they all decide to like not go hunting for Small Sade after all. But then they didn't count on Clement.
When she said that at the end, I was so mad. Disgusted.
It's such a good example of, I don't know, like, all right, so this is like a magical, mystical being. This is like a god-like thing that we're dealing with. So they're going to have like access to all kinds of information. So I don't want to like belabor the point about what it's like when you can clock what somebody's deal is and you can figure out exactly what to say to them to like really like get that soft spot, you know?
Yeah.
Like people who are like predators are really good at stuff like this of just being like, oh, I know exactly what to say to get you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just know exactly the words that are going to hit for you and make you most likely buy my bullshit. I'm hoping that she does not take any of this to heart. But it's so on brand. It's so perfectly crafted to say to Small Sade, because it's everything she already believes. And if there's one thing that the brain loves is confirmation bias. You know, we're going to believe, somebody tells us something we already believe about ourselves, we're going to be like, hell yeah. Whether our belief is actually rooted in reality or not. If someone is saying back to us something we already believe, we're going to fucking be like, yep, you goddamn right. Yeah. Ugh. What a horrible it's so funny too, because like we met Alec Batos in the first two books, but we didn't like meet them except for the one who was Terraside's dad. This bitch.
Yeah.
I mean, this, like, she's just giving him all a bad name.
Disgusted, like I said. Like, this right on the heels of what she just went through, it made me so enraged. It was just, she had to have been listening to the story.
I was wondering
that Sade told, right? Like, it has to be, yeah.
Yep. And the timing of it for it to come right at the same night that she's done this first sin swallowing for this guy, and she's like weak and filled with like disgustingness from someone else, and like the timing of it was just like she picked the moment when she would be the most vulnerable, to come and like dump all this shit on her. It's diabolical.
Diabolical. All right, so next chapter, 19. She is determinedly avoiding talking to the crocodile. I just do want to mention too, like, the fact that I not even mention, I want to ask your opinion. Why, after it seems he has like fulfilled the oath, why do you think he isn't dying? What do you think is keeping him here?
I don't know. Larry, so let's look exactly at what the enchantment is, right? So the enchantment is the old rulers have to be cast down their crowns, and those they exploit rise up. And somehow this has not been met, hasn't been fulfilled. So maybe the society that we are living in isn't not like, either there are still, clearly there are still those exploited, because Sade has just told us her whole life story, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it's that kind of deal where, and as long as there is this type of injustice where there are people still being exploited that do not rise up, then the wish can never be fulfilled. Like maybe only one part was fulfilled.
That's rough.
And the thing too is his wish is not for the realm. It's just for his, what do they call him? The country or his land or where he's from.
Yeah.
So
for Jabanti. Yeah.
So maybe it has something to do with him specifically. I don't know, guys. I don't know. Do you have any ideas?
I really don't. I was like thinking about it the other day and I can't come up with anything that feels satisfying. Like, because I had the similar thought that you did of like, well, wait, maybe it means the Ray Bearers. And I was like, no, it's only Jabanti. So how would that even be relevant? And he cast his crown off, right? So it's not like he is the one last holdout, or maybe the people didn't rise up enough. Like, maybe. What does that mean? It just, I don't have a good solution or suggestion at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's a weird thing too, because Jabanti, I don't know if all the other parts of the realm existed this way, but we know from this story that in Jabanti, even there was like a ruling family that was Zuri's family, but they were puppets and they were getting routinely murdered. And that's why Zuri was pretending to be like a drunken fool, so he wouldn't be a threat enough to be murdered. Like they just could leave him. Right. And we know that he's pretty much the last of his family. But they were rulers in name only because the warlords were the actual power. So maybe there's a weird gray area in this wish. If there are still warlords or new warlords in Jabanti that are like finding, because you know that when there's a power vacuum, there's always something else that comes to take its place.
Oh yeah. Maybe
there's like a new power that's like in the vein of the warlords that are like still oppressing people in Jabanti, and that's what needs to be. But this is like a real reach. Like I'm stretching my arms here trying to make it make sense because nothing is really like, I really don't know. I bet it's going to end up being some kind of weird, like, well, you like when you get the wishes from the monkey paw,
Oh God.
It's going to be it's going to be one of those. The turkey's a little dry. The turkey's a little dry. It's going to be that kind of situation.
Oh, no. So also, Ixalix leaves behind a bunch of work for them in the form of like mildew and bugs in the spa.
Yes.
Like everything about Ixalix is angering me so deeply. It's just, you couldn't even just roll in and leave without, oh God.
And not only did she leave behind like bugs and mildew, but she also left behind spies.
Oh yes. Yep. And they're not as smart as Cleme, because she learned her lesson about having smart servants, and God fucking forbid. Everything about her, like just being like, oh yeah, I don't like it when people who work for me have their own thoughts. So that's on me. I'll make sure not to do that again. Like,
you are so lucky I don't kill the things I create. Which sort of low key is like a shot at like the Christian God.
Oh my God, I didn't even think of that, but that is not completely out of the question. Man. So this is like, part of the work they've got to do, and her rejecting all of the gourds, throwing them in the well, throwing them out the window. And there is a point where she gets in kind of like a snark about, let's see, where is it? Conwell says, maybe Mama Dele has been picking on her. Small Sade looks the way I did when Mama Dele told me to stop experimenting with the inn's boring dinner menu. Well, maybe you should not experiment, I snapped, using my cane to beat wrinkles from a sheet with more malice than the cloth deserved. She does not pay us to be creative. Have you ever considered that all of us might be happier if we just kept our heads down and remembered our places? Oh, no.
Yeah.
And she eventually apologizes for this, but she also punishes herself by taking on more work that they were going to do to make up for it. And, you girl.
Yeah.
So, faintly, snatches of Crocodile's frantic voice scattered on the wind. Sade, please, can explain if you only... I'm sorry he found out that way, but Ixalix, have my word. Please do not... That salon, you are better than... I left the window and heard nothing more. So Clemé doesn't show up the next day. I was sort of surprised he doesn't just turn up.
You mean Clemé or Crocodile?
Crocodile.
Oh.
I feel like, especially considering what a mess the spa is.
Yeah, I think
we could have a problem with the filter again.
We know that he said he's like going to be unavailable because he's on like Boss Almighty work with the cults, which is why he's sending these gortograms.
True. I forgot he said that.
So yeah, that was my assumption, that he just feels like if he could get there, he absolutely would. And to be honest, like, I'm trying to remember, like, I still think he may show up when it's time for the actual, like, when we get to that moment, I think he might still show up. But yeah, so, but this is all these calls, these voice memos are coming, because he's like elsewhere. So she goes upstairs to clean Dele's room and doesn't knock and just like burst in, and she catches Dele on the floor with Yeon, in a very like intimate, quiet moment.
Yeah. She's very much like, wow. I mean, don't apologize, but she's realizing that cleaning up as much as she has made it so that Dele feels freer to push things.
Yeah.
And is sort of wondering, like, what is going to happen with this? Oh, boy. And I have something to tell you. So Yun follows her and is like telling her how I told Dele that I was not coddled as a kid. I told her about my history. And so she has decided that she needs to baby me in order to make up for that time. And I love this moment. She's been obsessed with swaddling me, literally. She insists that it will, quote, heal the wounds of my inner orphan child, unquote. I opened my mouth, then closed it, unsure of what to say. Rich girls. Yeon monotoned. Rich girls. I agreed. This very much was giving white girls for me. Like, you know, she's not a white girl, but this is coded white girl behavior, in my opinion.
This is very, very satisfying. This little exchange. This was very satisfying. Yeah, it is giving privileged, it is giving white girl.
Yep, most definitely.
And it's the first time that Sade has had like a laugh since her encounter at the spa. Yeah. And it says, I nearly melted at how good it felt. Yeah, and so then I love this too. Yeon is telling Yeon is telling the story of like she's telling she says, I suppose it's the easiest way for people to find out, when she's talking about like getting caught, because Sade is like, does Mama Dele still not know? And Sade mumbles like, easiest for Dele, but what about for you? And then she remembers who says this line? You are far more dangerous to her than she could ever be to you. That's italicized, like somebody had said that earlier.
I'm trying to find the spot. I think that was something that she said to Dele when she was trying to explain to her that she should maybe like back off a little bit when they were talking. But like when she went up there to clean and everything.
Oh,
I thought that she said something like they had a talk, that was sort of.
Yes. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. I think you're right. Okay. Because when Dele is talking about sneaking off to see her.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then she says, I chased after you to give you this, seeing as that he's resorted to using me instead of the gecko. And she has a message from the crocodile, which Sade does not want to take.
She doesn't.
And she tells Sade, you have really done a number on him, I've never seen him so distraught. He's filled about a dozen gourds with those sappy letters.
I love this so much.
And when he found out that Ixalix told you who he was, well, I had to convince him that challenging a 10,000-year-old Alekbato to fisticuffs wasn't a good idea.
Delightful. Fisticuffs.
I love that. I love fisticuffs. And they use it a lot in hockey. The announcers will always say.
Do they say that
all the time? Yeah.
Oh, amazing!
Yeah. They'll say fisticuffs. I don't know why they do it. When you think about it, it's a little like weird and antiquated, but yeah,
that's funny.
And then she tells her that like because Sade is like, how do you know the crocodile? Because she still hasn't gotten a good answer.
Yeah.
To this. And she says, are you one of them too? An anointed one? Which that made me laugh because it seems like she's being paranoid, but she just found out that the crocodile was an anointed one. So this is not unreasonable.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
No, she's not. And then she says, she shows her like her glyphs and asks Sade, are you too young to remember what a redemptor is? Which hadn't occurred to me.
Yeah, that's like possible.
Yeah, but it didn't occur to me that would like be. I mean, it's only been like 9 or 10 years. Mm-hmm. We were talking about a generational tradition that murdered like untold number of children. In 9 years, it's possible that there's a new generation, and I guess maybe it is possible that you could have a new generation that just doesn't like really comprehend what it was like, what the reality of it was like. But initially, I was just like, "What do you mean? Does she know? Of course she knows. Everybody knows. What are you talking about?"
Yeah, this is. I am really wondering if there's anything. If there's going to be something more that comes of the fact that both these people are linked to ray bearers, and obviously it's going to come in the story, but like, is there going to be a point where Sade is just like, I don't even really want to like talk to Yon anymore, because even though she's not a ray bearer, she has this like storied history where she fought against demons with Tarasai, like, you know.
They're like basically besties, and they have a bond that like, you know, no one else can say that they share with her. They went through some shit together.
Yeah.
I love this. I love too finding out that the baby, the little sister that was like in the first 2 books, is like thriving at the palace. I love that little like just knowing that she's doing okay, that she's doing great.
But as for herself, she's like, I couldn't stand being there, first of all. like, I had seen real shit, so just going to banquets and stuff, it just felt very like, you know. And then also, having the affection of ray bearers is like standing beneath a sweltering, beating sun that never goes down. Not ever. Some plants thrive in relentless sunshine. Ree seems to, anyway, and I'm happy for her. But I'm not like that. I need shade and space, or I shrivel up and burn. So I struck out on my own, and I've lived at my shop in the Ilimanu district. It's IL, right? Ilimalu district ever since.
That was beautiful. I thought that was really, really a profound thing to say, you know.
Yeah.
That having the affection of ray bearers. That's such a interesting turn of phrase too, but like, because it's something you would like normally, like the idea of having their affection would seem like the greatest gift, you know, like who wouldn't want that? And the sort of acknowledgement that not everybody is built for that, you know?
Yeah.
And I love the way that she says that, you know, I need shade and space or I'll shrivel up and burn. Like, some of us are just not built for that type of attention and limelight and being on display, you know, and being watched, being perceived at that level. And she says, she asked Sade to please not tell Delia about this, because all Delia knows is that she was a redemptor, but she has no idea of the close proximity that she has to the ray bearers. And I thought that was really funny, because one of the things Mama Deli was saying was like, if you found a girl who was, you know, came from money, then I'd say go ahead and be happy.
I swear to God, I was like, can't you just, for the sake of this, like, it would make everything so much easier. And does she not know that? Is she not aware that that's how Mama Dele feels? Why wouldn't you just use this to your advantage in that sense?
I mean, she doesn't even want Deli to know, because she's worried about what Deli would do. She's not even talking about Mama Deli in this moment. So she doesn't even want what she believes Deli's reaction would be, because she says she'd never admitted, but she's always wanted me to be more ambitious. So there's a sense here that there's like an undercurrent to their relationship where Deli is kind of wishing that Young had more status or more money, you know, was, you know, brought more to the table, probably so that she then could tell her mother, look, maybe. See, you know.
Yeah.
But
I wonder if that's like going. Do you think that the relationship is going to make it?
I am a little torn. Like, I wanted to, because like I want to be like, yay, queer relationship, and they're so cute together, you know, and you want them to be happy. But there's been some, and it's not that Deli's terrible, but she seemed, you know, but there's some like maybe yellow flags. Yeah. Maybe not necessarily red flags, but maybe yellow flags. The
shallow understanding of the progressive white.
Yes. Yeah. There it is. Exactly. I don't even have to say anything else. That's exactly it. You know, the way that she is really ready to, like you say, be very performative and like challenge her mother and her mother's peers, but also likes her very comfortable life where people bring her breakfast in her room and do her hair and lay her clothes out, and you know.
Yeah.
So I guess to answer your question, I'm rooting for their relationship if we see maybe some growth on Deli's part. Like if she does something, you know, that makes it seem like she really gets it, you know, that she takes a stand, like a real stand, that like maybe costs her something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What about you? Are you rooting for him?
I think I'm in the same boat as you are. I feel like the fact that she is wishing Yoon were more ambitious, I think it's partially so that she could say to her mother about it, but I also feel like it's sort of almost like she's it's like Finrick with being like, oh, I hustle. I don't just, waste my downtime. I'm out here doing things. And it almost feels like, well, you could be like that. You're smart. You could do more, you know? And it's a bit of shame at where her partner currently is.
Yeah. I mean, because she could leave the inn and go live with Young at her flower stall.
Yeah.
And they could just go be poor together and sleep in the shop. And like her mother has said, she hasn't done that. Yeah. I'm also not sure how old she's supposed to be. I can't remember if we get that info or not. But
I don't remember it.
She's coming across to me as fairly young.
Yeah.
Like whatever the age of majority is, she's just a little bit past it. So like 19, maybe 20 at the most. But or she could be older and just seems very childish. Like I don't know which is which.
I think that I thought she was younger, like 16, 17. And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know where I'm getting that. So
the only reason she just seems to be like out of schooling age, but I have no idea what the school age is in this universe. So I'm just putting 18 because that's what it is for us in real life.
Yeah.
But I actually I can't remember. I think there was probably talk about it in the first two books when you talk about kids when they reach the age of majority, when they become like actual, when they're done with their schooling and they take on their jobs, when we were in the first two books. But all that to say, Deli just strikes me as being very young.
Yeah, agreed. All right, so the chapter ends with, I'd never hear the end of it, which is funny because it's the last chapter, so it's the end of our section. And you did hear the end of it. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this book so far. I wasn't sure how it would feel to go into this universe without it being through Terrasai's POV. And
I love that we're getting really like a bottom up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like it just really is a different viewpoint, and it's so relatable for the position that we are occupying in the world versus Terasai was like in a vulnerable position and had gone through shit, but she also was very privileged. So yeah, agree. I'm into it. It's like if we threw in a small folk POV into Song of Ice and Fire.
Right,
like
right.
A real one. I didn't mean that to sound as
as pointed as it was.
It really sounded like I was just like, not like that bullshit he's trying to pull sometimes. I mean, for real, George. But maybe that is what I meant.
I think it is. I think you said exactly what the fuck you meant.
Yeah, might have. Anyway, all right. So I'm going to say hi to new patrons. And I can't remember if I made this announcement on this. I know we did it for Song of Ice and Fire, but just in case I had forgotten to say it on this show, anybody who is interested in becoming a patron, please try for your own sake to make sure that you do it through the browser, patreon.com/unspoiled. Be kind of careful because I tried to do this and it automatically opened the Patreon app, which I didn't realize. But the app, the way that Apple works is they are great with some things and then they're monsters. And what they have been monsters about recently is that they are taking 30% of anything purchased on the App Store just because. And so they have put Patreon in this position where you either can eat that cost and get less for the same product that you've been selling, or Patreon has something in place where I can increase my prices only on the App Store app. And so that is what I have chosen. But I just want to let you guys know, because you would be paying more for no reason and getting the exact same thing. So just an FYI, if you have no problem with that, my advice is still to go through the website and then just give me that extra money. Go to the browser, and instead of paying the $8 for a $5 tier that you would have on there, just sign up at $8 and give me that $3. Just do that. But if you guys weren't aware of that, I just wanted to let you know, because I'm sure like there's a lot of other creators that are affected by this, and it has made it so that like folks who do per creation on Patreon, they're kind of going to have to phase out that whole method of being funded, which sucks balls for those people. I feel really bad. I'm very lucky that this isn't really going to affect me that much. And Patreon's been taking a lot of heat for it, but I really think they're doing the best they can. A lot of folks have said, just delete the app then, like take a stand against Apple and just remove your app from the App Store. And honestly, I kind of think that's probably the way to go, because the app is not that good. A lot of people just have tons of problems with it. But I really do understand, after all of the development that they have put it through, that they wouldn't want to do that. But anyway, so all that to say, there's no new patrons this week. So just letting you guys know. But yeah, thank you all so much for listening. I really hope that y'all are enjoying our coverage. And until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.